In this video, we're going to cover a detailed summary of Sophocles' tragic play, Antigone, exploring its story, characters, and moral conflicts in narrative form. So let's start. The story of Antigone takes place in the ancient city of Thebes shortly after a brutal civil war. Two brothers, Eteocles and Polynices, sons of the cursed king Oedipus, have killed each other while fighting for control of the throne. Their uncle, Creon, ascends to power as the new king of Thebes, determined to restore order and authority after years of chaos. Creon believes that strong leadership and strict laws are necessary to stabilize the city, and he begins his rule by making a decisive and controversial proclamation. Creon declares that Eteocles, who defended Thebes, will be honored with a proper burial. Polynices, however, who attacked the city, is labeled a traitor. Creon orders that Polynices' body must remain unburied, left to rot in the open as punishment and as a warning to others who might oppose the state. Anyone who attempts to bury him will be sentenced to death. This decree directly challenges religious tradition, which holds that burial is a sacred duty owed to the dead, regardless of their actions in life. Antigone, the sister of the two dead brothers, is deeply disturbed by Creon's command. She believes that divine law is more important than human law, and that denying burial condemns her brother's soul to eternal suffering. Antigone is courageous, determined, and guided by moral conviction rather than fear. She decides that she will bury Polynices, even if it costs her life. Her sister Ismene, more cautious and obedient, refuses to help, fearing the consequences of defying the king. Antigone accepts this burden alone, believing that loyalty to family and the gods outweighs obedience to unjust authority. Under the cover of darkness, Antigone secretly performs burial rites for Polynices. Her act of defiance is soon discovered, and she is brought before Creon. Unapologetic and resolute, Antigone openly admits what she has done. She argues that Creon's laws are temporary and human, while the laws of the gods are eternal and unchanging. Creon, however, sees her actions as a direct challenge to his authority. He views obedience to the state as essential to order and believes that allowing Antigone to go unpunished would weaken his rule. The conflict between Antigone and Creon becomes the central struggle of the play. Antigone represents moral courage, religious duty, and loyalty to family. Creon represents political authority, law, and human pride. Neither is willing to compromise, and their stubbornness drives the tragedy forward. Creon orders Antigone to be imprisoned in a stone tomb where she will be left to die. Haemon, Creon's son and Antigone's fiancé, attempts to reason with his father. He warns Creon that the people of Thebes sympathize with Antigone and believe her actions are just. Haemon argues that a wise ruler should listen to others and be flexible. Creon dismisses his son's advice, seeing it as emotional weakness and disobedience. This rejection strains their relationship and further isolates Creon, showing how pride blinds him to reason. As the situation worsens, the blind prophet Tiresias visits Creon with a dire warning. He tells the king that the gods are angered by the refusal to bury Polynices and by Antigone's imprisonment. He predicts disaster if Creon does not reverse his decision. At first, Creon accuses Tiresias of corruption and refuses to listen. However, fear begins to replace arrogance as the prophet's words sink in. Realizing too late that he may have defied divine law, Creon finally agrees to bury Polynices and release Antigone. Tragically, Creon's change of heart comes too late. When he reaches Antigone's tomb, he discovers that she has taken her own life rather than wait for death. Haemon, devastated by her loss, turns against his father and kills himself in despair. The chain of tragedy does not end there. When Creon's wife, Eurydice, learns of her son's death, she also takes her own life, blaming Creon for the destruction of their family. By the end of the play, Creon is left utterly broken.
Once proud and authoritative, he is now overwhelmed with grief, guilt, and regret. He realizes that his rigid enforcement of law and refusal to listen to wisdom have destroyed everything he valued. Creon finally understands that leadership without humility leads to ruin, and that ignoring divine law brings devastating consequences. Antigone is a powerful exploration of moral duty, authority, pride, and conscience. The play examines the conflict between individual belief and state law, showing how blind obedience and excessive pride can lead to catastrophe. Antigone's unwavering commitment to justice and faith contrasts sharply with Creon's rigid devotion to power and control. Together, their clash reveals the tragic consequences of inflexibility on both sides. The play ends with a solemn reminder that wisdom comes from respecting both human law and divine truth. Through suffering and loss, Creon learns humility, while Antigone becomes a symbol of moral courage and sacrifice. Antigone remains a timeless tragedy, resonating across generations as a warning about power, responsibility, and the cost of ignoring conscience.